The American Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865, was one of the deadliest conflicts in history. It claimed around 1 million lives, 600,000 soldiers and just as many civilians, while devastating the economy of the United States. Many believe that the war was primarily about slavery and its abolition, but this is a simplified narrative. While slavery became a central issue, the true causes of the war were more complex. By the early 19th century, two distinct economic systems had developed in the United States. The northern states, with their less fertile soil and harsher climate, focused on industry and manufacturing. Meanwhile, the southern states, including Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia, thrived on agriculture, particularly cotton, which was in high demand by Britain's booming textile industry. Plantation agriculture in the South relied heavily on enslaved labor, with nearly half the population in some areas consisting of African slaves. The transatlantic slave trade had long been sustained by internal conflicts in Africa, where warring tribes captured and sold their defeated enemies, initially to Arab traders and later to European and American merchants. Southern states depended on cotton exports for economic prosperity, and by 1861 they saw an opportunity to establish their own nation, the Confederate States of America (CSA), with Richmond, Virginia as its capital. By seceding, the South hoped to control its economy and possibly form trade alliances with Britain. 11 states joined the Confederacy: South Carolina, Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Texas, Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, and North Carolina. However, their secession posed a severe threat to the northern economy. Without the South's cotton trade, the industrial North risked economic collapse. Contrary to popular belief, the North's primary concern was not slavery, but the economic consequences of secession. President Abraham Lincoln faced a dilemma. The U.S. Constitution allowed states to leave the Union legally, but if the South seceded, the North would suffer economically. Lincoln knew that openly admitting this would be politically disastrous. Instead, he framed the war as a moral struggle against slavery, a powerful rallying cry that helped unite Northern support for military action. The immediate trigger for war came in April 1861, when Southern forces occupied Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Lincoln used this as justification to deploy federal troops, leading to full-scale war. One of the decisive factors in the Union's victory was its naval superiority. The North controlled the U.S. Navy and used it to enforce a blockade of southern ports, cutting off crucial cotton exports and causing economic devastation in the Confederacy. This strategy ultimately broke the South's resistance after 4 brutal years of fighting. The Civil War was not just about North and South, it was also shaped by immigration. The North's industrial economy relied heavily on Irish immigrants, many of whom had fled the Great Irish Famine of 1845-1852, which wiped out much of Ireland's potato crop and led to mass starvation. These Irish workers were often referred to as white slaves due to their harsh working conditions. After the war, America saw another wave of immigrants. Between 1870 and 1975, around 20 million Italians arrived, mainly from the impoverished southern regions of Italy. The Italian unification of 1871 had left the South in economic ruin, forcing millions to seek opportunities in the US. Similarly, Greece saw a wave of emigration in the 1890s due to the collapse of its raisin trade, which had been a major economic driver. The Union's victory did not bring peace to the South. After Northern troops occupied Southern territories, widespread looting, massacres, and forced Reconstruction policies fueled resentment. This led to the formation of the first Ku Klux Klan, a group that originally aimed to resist Northern military rule. This version of the Klan, which emerged in the late 1860s, was different from the later 20th century Klan, which became a violent and racist organization. The story of the first Klan is depicted in the 1915 film The Birth of a Nation. Directed by D.W. Griffith, the film reflects the Southern perspective on Reconstruction. Had Lincoln allowed the South to secede, the North could have collapsed economically, potentially leading to a reunification with Britain. Meanwhile, the Confederacy, as an agricultural-based economy, might have followed a path similar to Tsarist Russia, remaining an agrarian state with limited industrial progress. Instead, by forcibly preserving the Union, Lincoln set the stage for America's industrial expansion, which eventually made the USA global superpower. America's rise to global dominance was cemented in World War I, nearly half a century after the Civil War. In 1918, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia led to the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, in which the newly established Soviet government surrendered vast territories to Germany, allowing the Central Powers to shift their focus entirely to the Western Front. At that moment, America saw that Germany and its allies could potentially win the war. To prevent this, the US intervened decisively, sending troops and resources to Europe, which ultimately tipped the balance in favor of Britain and France. This victory established America as a dominant force in global affairs. Thus, Lincoln's decision to preserve the Union laid the groundwork for industrial and economic expansion, which allowed the US to emerge as a superpower in the 20th century. Ironically, at the time of the Civil War, the Democratic Party supported the South, while the newly formed Republican Party was the party of abolitionists and progressives. Over time, these political alignments shifted dramatically, demonstrating how history evolves in unexpected ways. The American Civil War was far more than a simple fight over slavery. It was a conflict driven by economic survival, political power, and the future direction of the United States. While Lincoln's leadership ensured the preservation of the Union, the cost was immense, both in lives lost and in the long-lasting scars on the nation. However, in hindsight, his actions set the stage for the US to become a global superpower, proving that history is shaped by difficult choices that extend far beyond their immediate consequences.